Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for Reduce That Reactivity. How many people were with me yesterday? How many people weren't with me yesterday? Oh, how cool. Okay, well, welcome, everybody. Awesome. The folks who were here with me yesterday are going to recognize about maybe 40% of the material because it's just so basic. You might even recognize a couple of videos. Consider it a good review. More than 60% is going to be new to you. For those who weren't with me, my name is Lynn Swanson, and my co-speaker is Dulcie. That's Italian for pleasant and useful, which is appropriate because she is a vertigo assistance service dog, something that Dobermans really excel at. Both Dulcie and I live at Safe Harbor Farm, and we are volunteers with Safe Harbor Farm Canine's Smile Project. The Smile Project was created in response to at least 10 years of people asking us, how do you get your dogs to be so quiet? How do you get the dogs at your shelter to get along together? And how do you get them to be so focused on you, so focused here? The answer to those questions pretty much came down to three things that we do proactively, and they're the pillars of what we do. The first is a practice of policymaking that emphasizes always seeing things through the eyes of our dogs. Because when we do, it's good for us too. The second is well thought out canine intuitive routines that set dogs up for success as opposed to failure. And the third is encouraging all of the dogs at our facility, from Dane mixes well down to Chihuahuas, to work individually and in groups for relaxed and well-timed, I am so proud of you smiles that focus our dogs' attention on us when decisions need to be made. It's how our project got its name. Now, that's not to say we're treat meanies at Safe Harbor. We do use food and we use treats in a number of situations. It's just that we've learned that well-timed, genuine smiles are so much more flexible, and they work better, and they're more practical in most situations. Smiles are free, and they're always with you. They don't promote unwanted excitement, nor do they promote mouthiness. They can't be dropped by arthritic hands, and they don't leave crumbs in your pockets. Smiles can be used selectively when you're working with multiple dogs. And we're nearly always working with multiple dogs, right? Okay, we work with one dog, and who's watching? All the other ones. And you don't even have to be looking at a dog for your smile to send us message. Dogs love working with smiles, and smiles are good for us too, as you will soon see when it comes to working with reactive dogs. So ready to discuss reactive dogs? Me too, my favorite subject. Awesome. So let's start with a big picture. When it comes to a dog's behavior and the choices he makes moment by moment, what he does and why he does it reflects 6 important things. The first is his nature, and that's built into his DNA. He is first and foremost a dog. His culture is that of a dog. The way he communicates with others is that of a dog. And his social cues and the social rules that he follows are that of a human. Just trying to see if y'all still awake there. They're that of a dog. So the DNA characteristics of his breed or mix of breeds also come into play. He may be nose forward, like your typical beagle. Super watchful, like your typical Dobie. Driven to herd like an Aussie, or full of the boing factor like a Jack Russell Terrier. Knowing what floats his boat helps us meet his DNA-driven desires. It helps us understand his reactions, and it can help us guide him to succeed as opposed to fail. It reflects his nurture, which includes his puppyhood socialization and any training that he's gotten along the way. It reflects his state of mind and his energy level, both things that we discussed yesterday a little bit. It reflects associations he's making and routines that he's familiar with. Nature, nurture, state of mind, energy level, associations, and routines. And only one of these things isn't changeable. And that's his nature. I said it before, but it bears repeating. He is a dog, and his culture is canine culture. The social cues and social rules that he follows are first and foremost canine, and his body language is canine. Now, he may be familiar with human culture, and he may know what certain human cues mean, but at his best and at his worst, and regardless of breed, he is first and foremost a dog. So to understand why a lot of dogs get reactive and how easy it is, or as easy it can be, to set them up for relaxation and success instead, it pays to understand 8 practical canine truths. The first practical truth is, like us, our dogs prefer to be around relaxed individuals. The last thing a reactive dog needs is tense people around them. And you've seen this. Dog comes to your facility and he's sizing everybody up immediately. That one's frustrated. That one's a little too much energy for me right now. That one's just nuts. Oh, she's relaxed and she's smiling. Okay, I'm going to go over by her. And if you watch for this, you are going to notice that these new dogs will align themselves with the calmer, more relaxed individuals. The last thing a reactive dog needs is tense people around them. Now, truth 2. Dogs do their best when they're following good decision makers. When you're a dog, especially if you're a reactive dog, it is always less stressful to be the follower of a calm, clear, confident, consistent, and canine intuitive decision maker than it is to be the number one decision maker. Remember the 5 C's of good canine communication from yesterday's session? Calm, clear, consistent, confident, and canine intuitive. Now, truth 3 isn't high-level physics either. Simply put, dogs like and they need to move. While our species is quick to stand still, deep in conversation, or hovering over our technology, the nature of a dog couldn't be more different. Dogs readily get moving, to move on, physically, psychologically, and socially. This, by the way, for those of you who weren't with me yesterday, is my beloved partner and co-speaker of 11 and a half years. His name is Hiker. And for those of you who remember him from previous conferences, I'm sad to report that he passed on last year. And Dulcie is his successor. That's the good news. So practical truth 4 is vitally important. And it's one that we discussed for 4 hours yesterday. Dogs communicate with each other via PPME. That is posture, position, movement, and energy, both in quantity and quality. And they interpret our posture, our choice of positions, our use of movement or lack thereof, and the energy we project both in quantity and quality in the context of their species and not ours. People are very good at misinterpreting what their dogs are doing for so many reasons. And one of the biggest is because we're human. We interpret any and all behavior through the lens of human culture, human ways of communication, and human social cues. And that becomes human expectations. Practical truth 5. Dogs have very different social rules and social cues than we do, especially when it comes to meeting one another. So let me expand upon that for a little bit. Our species is a very face-to-face species. When we meet somebody for the first time, we stop moving, don't we? We stand across from one another. We tend to look into each other's eyes. We may even reach out a limb into another person's personal space. And Lord knows we are always vocal. Hi, how are you? I'm Lynn. Dogs, on the other hand, are more of a nose-to-butt species. When polite dogs meet each other for the first time, they lead with low noses, and they quickly move to each other's side and back end. Standing still across from one another, reaching into another's personal space, promoting direct eye contact or vocalizing the way us humans do, can be seen as posing a challenge. Ever seen an adult dog reprimand a puppy who's licking, whining, or pawing at their face? He's telling the youngster, be polite. Move to my back end with a low nose before exploring a lot of my front end. Don't ever correct an adult dog for doing this. He's right in this case. He's not going to draw blood. He's just trying to get a point across, and he means no harm. So don't y'all interfere. The big picture is that every species has its own social cues and customs. And the more we learn about them and we honor them when we work with a species, the better we'll be accepted by that species. And the easier it is to lead them to the behavior that we want to see and prevent reactive behaviors that we don't want to see. Speaking of pictures, practical truth number 6 is because dogs are so very good at reading the energy around them, they often know the picture in our mind even better than we do ourselves, and they respond accordingly. When meeting dogs for the first time or introducing dogs to one another, this truth is pretty important. And it brings me to the next one, which is dogs pull away from tension. With dogs, tension and frustration, however justified and in all its various forms, is going to work against you 100% of the time. Ever notice how dogs tend to pull back when you draw them forward? It's a reflex. They're not even thinking about it. Ever notice how they tend to pull forward when you draw them back? It's due to the same reflex. And if a dog is at a higher level of energy or in an unsettled state of mind like this dog, watch out. The tension in your leash plus the tension projected by your body and fed by the worried picture in your mind is going to send that dog over the edge. The good news is calm directed movement is the key to preventing problems like this, and it's something we're going to be discussing a lot shortly. Now, many of you already know this, but for those who don't, tension is also why so many dogs and people experience issues when extendable leashes are used. Leashes like this, ones that provide near constant tension on a dog's collar or his harness, and no soft, easily adjusted connection, they're absolutely the worst kind to use, especially when you're introducing dogs to one another. They change the posture of an otherwise sweet-natured dog into one of a charging bull, and this sets other dogs up to be reactive. So for the sake of all the dogs your dog will ever meet, please don't make this mistake. The last super practical truth is dogs like being members of a good team, a family, a group. When dogs walk or they stand side by side, the psychology is a lot like a school of fish, a football team, or a family. There's a spirit of unity, of security, of togetherness, and of us and them distinction. All 8 of these very practical truths can be capitalized on to bring out any dogs and any handler's best, and honoring them is pivotal when it comes to preventing reactivity. Dogs like to be around relaxed individuals. Dogs do their best when they're following good decision makers. Dogs like and they need to move. Dogs communicate through posture, position, movement, and energy. And they have unique but very important social cues. No matter how much you want to believe otherwise, your dog may know the picture in your mind better than you do yourself. Dogs pull away from tension, and they really do like being members of a good team. So I've put together some slides that detail 14 common situations where dogs get reactive. In every case, the keys to bringing out a dog's more relaxed side, as opposed to his reactive side, reflects these 8 very basic canine truths. Now, some of the situations will be a review for those of you who were with me yesterday. Others are new ones. Let's start with how dogs approach new people. Now, this short clip was taped at an outdoor adopt-a-thon. Ignore the little barking Shih Tzu. I want you to watch. You see the gal in the middle with the purple shirt? Her name is Erica. And you will see a gentleman coming out on your left. So keep an eye on him and keep an eye on the little Aussie that you see right in front of him. That Aussie was just walking through the crowd on a loose leash, and he was just sniffing everybody who went by. See how he responds to Erica and see how he responds to this otherwise lovely gentleman. What did I do? Uh-oh. Let me play it one more time so now you know what you're looking for. So, well, what did he do? He related to a new dog in a very well-meaning but completely human fashion, wholly dependent upon a dog's socialization, using social cues 180 degrees counter to canine culture. And since any dog, first and foremost, is a dog, his first instinct is to follow the social rules and social cues of his species. Rules and cues taught by his mama dog long before any taught by humans. People who don't understand the value of meeting other species using social cues that reflect that species and not ours tend to relate to dogs like they're small kids or the living, breathing embodiment of the stuffed animals they've loved since children. They stand across from dogs when orienting at an angle or side by side sends a much better message. They lean over them. They stare into a dog's eyes and they reach into their personal space. They also become conversational in situations where quiet body language would be better. In other words, they break the social rules of dogs all the time. In this case, this lovely gentleman who now knows how to approach new dogs better was also unaware that the bright light behind him could make it harder for the dogs below him to discern all his features. The good news is, when you orient yourself to new dogs in a more canine intuitive fashion, the payoff is immediate. Instead of doing this, simply do this. Keep your posture upright and rotate 45 to 180 degrees to offer your side or hip in greeting. It doesn't have to be close by. It's just a change of your orientation. With little dogs, crouching without leaning, if your knees and your back allow, further encourages the dogs closer. So same lovely volunteer named Mary in two of these pictures, and same sweet little dog named Maggie. If a picture says 1,000 words, I think these two pictures say it all. And Maggie is being quite honest about how she feels. I mentioned this yesterday. I know some people are still teaching this approach to new dogs. For those of you who weren't with me yesterday, think of where this might come from. This reaching out and offering your hand to a dog. Hi. How are you? I'm Lynn.
I'm Erin.
Human culture, human social cues. I think Erin would be a little concerned if I came up and sniffed her butt. Like, okay, she's a dog person, but that's crossing a line. So that's where that whole thing comes from. It's not really being canine intuitive. It's very human intuitive. And it doesn't work very well with reactive dogs. It doesn't work well with a lot of dogs. A super socialized dog, yeah, fine, put every part of your body in my personal space immediately. I love everybody immediately. Not every dog is like that. So for the sake of dogs everywhere, even the ones socialized to put up with extended hands, please consider introducing yourself to them in a more canine intuitive fashion. With a change in orientation that opens up your side or your hip for a polite sniff and doesn't face the dog head on. You doing this while keeping your hands to yourself will put any dog a lot more at ease, and you reaching a hand towards their head, it will also keep you safer. Now, disregarding canine social rules is also why so many little dogs become tense or reactive when you reach to take them from their handlers. So let's talk about that. When you ask someone to pass a little dog to you, always ask them to turn the dog around and pass them to you back first. Why? Well, first, it allows the dog to politely lead with his butt and not his face. That better follows canine social protocol and social cues. Second, it allows the person passing the dog to be a secure point of reference for the dog that is hovering over midair. And third, it doesn't pass a dog face first into someone's personal space. No one likes to get pushed into the personal space of another. I absolutely love getting calls and emails back from shelters, clinics, and boarding staff just trying this for the first time, especially folks who said that they were once terrified of Chihuahuas, but now they love them. A simple change of orientation. Pass them back first, and they will be so much more comfortable. Now, how about when it's time to pick up a little dog, especially one who's being skittish? Well, in that case, try turning and moving away while tapping the side of your leg. This will encourage him to follow you and come closer, So you can then reach straight down for him as opposed to reach out. If you're reaching straight down isn't as scary as you're reaching out into their personal space, as this video demonstrates.
Good job.
What I've done there is just very simple. Without any tension, I've just invited him to come into my personal space so I could reach down. I'll play it one more time.
Good job.
And this little guy, this little whippersnapper would nail you really, really quick if you reached for him into his space. Now, an approach that I take when I'm rehabbing small dogs that don't feel comfortable with people approaching is to leave a 4 to 6 foot leash on them 24/7 until they get to know and trust me. This allows me to calmly and matter-of-factly step on the end of their leash and reach straight down for the leash as opposed to reach for the dog. With dogs that I can trust not to chew on a leash, I use soft cloth leashes. But with puppies and less trustworthy adolescents, I use those old-fashioned chain leashes or some lightweight plastic-coated cable. Some of you probably already do that. Now, this video demonstrates a trick that I use with little dogs and pups that arrive with histories of submissive urination. And it also works with canine curmudgeons, those grumpy little bugaboos like this guy who aren't above removing a chunk of your finger. It positions these little cudgews at your side, and it gives them the job of following you so they aren't stewing their own juices while calculating the angle at which they're going to nail you. It's picking them up in a relaxed and matter-of-fact manner on the fly to stay dry. A little hard to do with my arthritic knees, but I make it happen. So rather than reach over him when he's stationary, I'm getting him moving so that he will follow me and I can pick him up on the fly. Here it is again. So with dogs who submissively urinate when you lean down to pick them up, picking them up on the fly will keep your sneakers dry because moving forward and squatting and peeing are kind of hard to do at the same time. Moving gives the canine brain something productive to do, and it helps these dogs develop confidence. And confident dogs don't feel the need to submissively urinate. So we use movement in many ways at our facility to build confidence in these dogs. And one of my favorite references, the book Smile, discusses a couple of other ways. This is what we do with bigger dogs. Let's say you have a Great Dane pup who submissively urinates. That's not exactly one you're going to pick up on the fly to keep your sneakers dry. In order to help these dogs get used to someone approaching them, to slip a lead over their head so that then they can go outside to urinate, this is what we do to get them used to us approaching them and putting the lead over their head. It's a little walking exercise. We do this away from the facility. This is actually in a local parking lot. And as she's walking along with this dog who's on a lead, she takes a second lead and she's just slipping it over his head and slipping it off and slipping it on again and slipping it off. Chapter 13 of the book is repeat, repeat, repeat. You'll see that we do lots of repetitive exercises because if you just introduce a dog to a concept like having a leash put on over his head once every day or once an hour, there's plenty of time to forget what the lesson is. Here, the leash is on, the leash is off, the leash is on, the leash is off. While he's walking, the message the dog gets is, this leash being put over my head is no big deal. So now this is a dog who, at home, they can just go by, slip a lead over his head, lead him out the door, and none of this, quick, open the door, he's peeing all over the place. Okay, that's Great Dane. There's a lot of pee there. Cage sharks. You gotta love them. Okay, now the character in this video is Huey, and he's a classic cage shark. When I play this video that was sent to me by his owner after meeting her at a conference, I want you to view what is going on around him from his perspective for a moment. Nice and quiet, walks readily into his crate. No big deal. He's not wagging his tail because he's happy, folks. So while all dogs take the social cues of their species seriously, some, like cage sharks, take them super seriously. Cage sharks may be love bugs in other circumstances, but put them in a cage or a carrier and they are all fang and fury. Unable to approach and be approached from the side and the rear puts them into a fight because I can't flee state of mind. Talking to them, reaching for them, and maintaining any eye contact only perpetuates the situation. It's being human intuitive as opposed to canine intuitive in your posture, your positions, your movement, and your energy, and you absolutely have to be calm and canine intuitive in all of those with these dogs. When you need to put a cage shark in a cage or carrier, covering the door with a towel is helpful because it reduces all eye contact. Don't hover over them when you do this. And when you need to approach them, do it matter-of-factly at an angle. You want them to relate to your smell, if at all possible, as opposed to your hands or your face, using their calm, curious noses as opposed to their more watchful and on-guard eyes. Keep your energy relaxed around these guys. Never be hesitant in mind or body or let their sharkiness throw you off your game. Because the last thing an insecure dog like this needs is a hesitant person around them. Can I say that again? The last thing any insecure dog needs is a hesitant person around them. Cage sharks need time to move beyond their fight or flight, so don't feel the need to rush things with them. When one comes to me snarling and carrying on in his carrier, I don't take him out of his carrier when he's in an unstable state of mind. I leave him in his carrier in a comfortable location where he can see the other dogs interact with each other and with me. In this case, time is on my side because the longer he sits in his carrier, the longer he has to see how relaxed and happy everybody else is. And, the longer he has for his bladder to fill up. This is a picture of Ziggy. And you're going to see more about Ziggy a little bit later on. But this is Ziggy the land shark when he first came to me. Ziggy spent his first 3 hours with us, just sitting in his carrier in the shade under some pine trees in a great big dog yard. From this spot, he got to watch a dozen or more dogs of all sizes and shapes play with each other and interact with our volunteers. But after 3 hours had passed, I wasn't quite ready yet to open up his cage door. I grabbed a good book and I sat with my butt facing his carrier door for 10 minutes. This introduced me to him by my scent, and it let him know that I'm going to be the calm, clear decision maker, so he doesn't have to make decisions. When he's ready to come out for a nice side-by-side walk, I'm the wonderful person who will give him what he wants and what he needs. But I'm not going to reward any carrying on by opening his carrier door a minute sooner. When it's time to open a cage shark's door, if at all possible, let them walk out of their cage or their carrier on their own without reaching for them. In Ziggy's case, a leash had been left in his carrier with him, so he was comfortable with it being attached to his collar as he moved forward out the door. And lastly, when you know ahead of time that you're dealing with a cage shark, leave his leash on when you put him in the cage and hook the end of that leash to the top of the cage. So then you can reach down for that leash as opposed to the dog, and reach for it facing away from the dog as opposed to orienting direct forward to the dog. Then I start walking because I want to move that little canine brain from this moment into a much better one. And standing and talking about it to him is not going to help. We've got to move on physically to move on psychologically. Now, as a rule, dogs don't trust hesitant energy. And here's another situation where it's going to work against you. When people hesitate indoors, especially if bright outdoor light exists behind them. Indoors or outdoors, never stand between dogs and bright light wondering why you're being barked at. The dogs are alert barking because for one thing, they may not be able to see all your features. And for another, even more important, because your stationary position in the doorway doesn't allow them to easily approach your side with their noses raised for a polite sniff. So might what I just described also be a factor in kennel alert barking? Absolutely. The only reason? Nope. Poor kennel routines are often a big factor, and poor staff posture, position, movement, and energy makes things even worse. Alert barking, stress barking, and instigated barking increases as a result. And if you're not sure how to differentiate different types of barking, Chapter 24 of the book is entitled A Bark is Not a Bark is Not a Bark, and it goes into the topic in detail. Speaking of barking, does your own dog bark at friends and family and strangers who come to the door? I see some nodding. You got lots of company. All right. So this is another situation where a person's positioning across from the dog, lack of movement, and hesitant energy, because after all, it's not their home, are to blame. But fortunately, it's your home. And because it's your home, it's easy to turn all of that around. Whenever I have expected visitors, say a neighbor, friend, relative, fellow volunteer, or even a contractor coming to fix an appliance, I ask them to do 4 things. The first is, I know they're coming. I ask them to walk into my house with a relaxed smile like they own it. No conversation, doorbell ringing, or knocking is required. Just walk into the house. Second, I tell them to completely ignore my dogs, both large and small, as they walk well into the middle of the first room without stopping. And I want them to focus on me. That's where I will greet them and guide them accordingly. The first thing relaxes the person. The second relaxes my dogs because then they don't have to respond to well-meaning but still confusing human social cues in conversation. This part is really important. Walking into the middle of the room gets my visitors away from the door, and it turns any hesitation they may be feeling into relaxed movement. It encourages my dogs to approach the visitor's sides with curious noses as opposed to watch from afar with watchful eyes. This gives my visitors direction, and it shows my dogs that given the appearance of this newcomer, I will be making important decisions so they don't have to. I love my dogs, I do, but I'm the first one to say that they are not better decision makers than I am. Remember practical truth number 2? Dogs do their best when they're following good decision makers. Well, good decision makers are calmly proactive, so their dogs don't feel the need to get reactive. The same approach with slight modification also applies when visitors to my home approach my dog's yard with me. If you were a visitor, you'd be instructed to straighten your spine and look up, because a confident posture relaxes dogs and people alike. You'd be guided to walk a half step in front of me well into the middle of my dog's play yard. Why in front of me? Because this position communicates to my dogs that in a world of leaders and followers, I am willing to follow you. Why into the middle of the yard? For the same reason I ask visitors to walk into my home and away from the door, because I want my dogs to relate to the newcomers with their noses and not with their eyes. You'd be encouraged to smile and even laugh a little to shed hidden tension and relax, even when approached by a bunch of big dogs. And you'd be reminded to follow good canine protocol until the time that all of my dogs did one of three things, any of which demonstrates a dog's comfort, approval, or an invitation to follow. And those three things are turning their head away before turning it back in your direction, nudging your hand for a gentle rub or two, or walking away and coming back to you. Once my dogs have offered their head turns, walkaways, or little nudges, you'd be welcome to talk to, touch, initiate eye contact, and handle everyone. I want my dogs to get used to your voice and touch. I just don't force them to do it impolitely. So two aspects of this process are worthy of more discussion, and they have to do with your position and your energy. Position first. Of the many things that decades of living with 1 to 2 dozen dogs at a time has taught me, this was one of the most profound and yet so simple. But time after time, I found it to be true. If a new person leads the way, my dogs become curious. Who's this new person that our beloved person is willing to follow? If a new person follows me, my dogs become concerned. Might this be a person who means me harm? Or might he be another follower like them? And hey, let's see where you fit in with everybody. Position communicates a lot to dogs, and using position thoughtfully is another way to prevent reactive behavior. The energy we project, both in quantity and quality, also says volumes to the dogs around us. We discussed this yesterday, and it's worth mentioning why I remind my visitors to offer a genuine, relaxed, ear-to-ear and up-to-the-eyes smile to the world when they first see my dogs. Curmudgeons take note, grimaces don't count. Genuine smiles drop our blood pressure. It's true and studies support it. You may not know that this is happening, but the dogs around you do. Smiles trigger the release of happy endorphins, something you probably don't know has happened, but again, the dogs around you do. Smiles help to relax our muscles, especially in our shoulders, back, and arms. And because dogs love to be around relaxed people, smiles promote their relaxed focus in return. On top of that, smiles help to connect us as a team. Yay! So who's got a copy of the book with them? For those of you who are new to this and weren't with us yesterday, that's it. And it's called Smile. And now you know why. So, speaking of teams, if honoring our dog's nature and culture is why, team building is the how when it comes to addressing and preventing a lot of reactive behavior in dogs. For this reason, much of what we do at our facility is team driven. And by this, I'm not talking about human teams. I'm talking about putting dogs of all shapes and sizes and people and animals of other species and even common objects such as bicycles or skateboards on the same team. It's the most valuable approach that you can take when it comes to working with reactive dogs, and it follows canine culture and social rules beautifully. Team building turns negative associations into positive ones. It's super practical, it's proactive, and it follows the 5 C's of canine communication. Done well, it sends a message that is calm, clear, confident, consistent, and canine intuitive. I mean, it really makes you the hero in the eyes of a dog who's like, should I get reactive? Should I get worried about this? Or no, you've given me someone to follow. You've given me something better to do. You've made me so much more comfortable. With reactive dogs, team building turns a me versus them state of mind into a you're one of us and I'm one of us and we are good together. Working with owner protective dogs is a really good example. Complicating the natural wariness of these dogs is often the nervous, hesitant energy of their owners. Approaching these dogs face to face and reaching out for their leashes, even with your posture calm and confident, is never the best idea. In these cases, simple repositioning by the owner at your direction puts the dog on your team. So in this video, Erica, the super tech, plays the super tech, while Robert, the intern, plays the owner And Ronnie the Doberman plays the role of the owner protective dog who needs her nails trimmed. Well, that last part is certainly true.
Hi.
Hi.
If you'd like to just bring Ronnie around and behind me and then just pause right here so that we're kind of lined up and she is right in between us.
Okay.
So they're making a person sandwich with Ronnie in the middle. And they're not rushing things.
She's doing good. So I'm going to have you just pass the leash to me. Okay. All right, and then why don't you just take a couple steps forward?
And Erica directs Robert to go maybe about 10 feet away and then turn around. Whose team is Ronnie on now?
All right, Ronnie.
Erica's team. And now Erica can lead Ronnie into the back room to get the nail trim. So incredibly simple, so incredibly safe, and canine intuitive, because Robert's getting Ronnie to Erica's team helps her turn her thought process from my job is to protect my person to my job is to follow my person. Cool, huh? I absolutely love how easy things can be when we work with a dog's nature as opposed to against it. When reactive dogs and their owners walk in my direction, and in situations where the reactive dog happens to be the one on my leash, I use the same simple routine that I use when introducing rambunctious dogs to each other, and also dogs paired with insecure people to each other. And the routine is described in this video on the givesmiles.us YouTube channel. So for those of you who aren't familiar with our videos yet, the Smile Project has a number of resources. One is the book Smile. It's an $18 book. We also have these YouTube videos free for everybody. If you go to YouTube and in the search bar, you put in our website without the www. That is, you just put in givesmiles.us and click search. It's going to take you to a number of choices, and one of the choices is a nice picture of my handsome boy, Hiker. And if you click on that, you're going to come up to the Smile channel. One of the videos that we've got is this one, introducing dogs to one another. What I'm about to discuss is in this video. So imagine for the moment that you and your dog are approached by another handler and her dog. And since this is a seminar on reactive dogs, imagine that one of them, either one, doesn't matter, starts hopping around or stiffening up or exhibiting any behavior, unsettled states of mind, or higher energy that forecasts a reactive response. This is what you do to bring peace to the situation. In a relaxed and matter-of-fact manner, as if this is exactly the situation you were hoping for. Turn 180 degrees, so you and your dog are moving in the exact same direction as the newcomers. And calmly, without any tension, bring your dog to your side if he isn't there already. Do this without stopping. And I've got to emphasize this. Do this without stopping. Your continued fluid movement is canine intuitive and very, very important in this situation. Slowing your pace slightly to speak over your shoulder to the other person. Invite the other handler to team up with her dog. That is, move her dog to her side as best as she can in a relaxed manner. And then focusing up and not down at her dog, team up with you and your dog for a short but well-paced, horizontally oriented walk in this orientation. And I call this the airplane wing orientation. And it's really important. You want everybody, all the people and all the dogs, completely parallel with each other. And the orientation is dog, person, person, dog. This walking side by side with somebody may be for 20 feet, just enough for her to pass you and go on her way, so you can turn around and go on your way. It might be 200 feet as a means of helping both dogs see that approaching dogs can be excellent walking partners. A positive association worth cultivating with all dogs, but especially reactive ones. Or it might turn into a 30-minute stroll together where you and your dog have just made some new friends. Your call. Leave as much space between the two of you as makes you comfortable. In cases where the other team is already walking well together side by side, I leave 3 to 4 feet. In cases like the one pictured here, where the other team isn't walking quite so well together in the beginning, I've left as much as 10 to 12 feet where the road allowed for it. The closeness of you and the other person isn't as important as the perfectly parallel orientation. This posture, positioning, and movement does three things. One, it gives all the dogs a common direction, a common director, you, and a common task to do. Walk at their handler's side without pulling. The distance between you, again, is not as important as true horizontal orientation. Second, it encourages the other handler to team up with her dog and not be the anchor that he is pulling around or the person who yanks at her dog's collar repeatedly while apologizing for her dog's reactive behavior. And third, it takes the other person's attention off of her dog and it puts it on you. This will ease a lot of the tension she may be projecting down her leash to her dog, just promoting his reactivity. Now, if you want to let her continue on her way so you can continue on your way, simply turn back around and wish her a nice day, letting her know that next time she can be the one to team up with her dog and calmly turn 180 degrees the next time she sees another dog, so other handlers and their dogs can walk past her without any dogs getting reactive. Or, if you've got some more time and you don't care which direction you're walking, or if the person seems nice and you'd like to walk with her and her dog for a while, you can continue your dog, person, dog-oriented walk without stopping, readying the dogs to meet. Now, it may be tempting to stop if either or both of the dogs pull to sniff at one another, something that inexperienced dogs often do. But my advice, if you really want to set them up for a relaxed introduction without any heightened energy, guarded behavior, or reactivity, is to continue your walk in a horizontal orientation a little while longer. Because your continued walking sends a message that both dogs have the job of calmly walking right now, as opposed to jumping around. And you know, it's perfectly fine to sniff one another from a distance, as opposed to get up in each other's business right away. Wait for the dogs to ignore each other in a relaxed manner. Then move one of them so your orientation becomes dog, person, dog, person. And once everybody's been walking like this in a relaxed manner and on loose leashes for a few minutes, feel free to stop so the dogs can introduce themselves in a peaceful, natural, nose-to-butt manner on completely loose leashes, looser than you see in this picture. Remember me saying that dogs like to move on physically, psychologically, and socially? Well, that's what your extra walking time does. It sets dogs and their handlers up for a more relaxed introduction. It sets everybody up to succeed. Introduction's done. Continue your walk any which way you want. Return to your horizontal orientation if it suits your purposes. You can tell your dogs to go out and not have to walk at your side if you want. With one group of dogs, you might decide to do one thing. With another group, you're going to do something else. Now, I absolutely love this super simple canine intuitive approach to new dog introductions. It's one that I've taken with more than 1,000 different dogs, and only once did I have to call things off. That episode involved an under-exercised fear biter paired with a very insecure owner, an absolutely dangerous combination that goes well beyond simple reactivity. And if you encounter an unstable pair like this, just let them go by and stay out of their way. Chances are they need a lot more help than you're going to be able to give them, and you don't want to be the one that sets a fear biter off. Okay? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay, so her scenario that she's posing is a scenario where in a controlled situation, this isn't a stranger coming by, it's her and a staff member with a dog who is known to be super reactive. What would she do if the dog gets reactive? This scenario that I just described is what we use for dogs that are very excitable, under-exercised, reactive but not dangerous reactive. Like the little whippersnappers, it's like, okay, let's just get walking. Or the dog who is a bit reactive, but not like a dangerous reactive, like a fear biter situation. And with those dogs, we've got to meet their needs before they can meet ours. You've heard me say that before. So how we do that is we exercise that dog first. So if I have a dog who's a real problem child, that dog is going to get some treadmill time. And when I talk about treadmilling dogs, our dogs walk on treadmills. We don't trot our dogs on treadmills. It's always a relaxed side-by-side walk with others. And we don't treadmill. Chapter 17 will teach you how to treadmill, not treadmill. We run like 8 treadmills at a time. So it's a group exercise that little dogs to big dogs just absolutely love because it's a bonding experience. But that dog would be introduced to walking next to other dogs on treadmills first. That's a very controlled situation. Calmly walking, we direct the speed. We can make it a pleasurable thing with a couple of biscuits when everybody's doing so good. We would do that work ahead of time. Then the other thing is, that's also a dog. Again, I'm not a strong individual. I have a trike. I have an adult trike. And I think we'll talk about that a little later. But that dog is tied to the basket of the adult trike. So I have another person walking another dog parallel with us, but I'm on a trike and that dog is tied. A controlled situation. There's a lot of different ways to control the situation better and set yourself up for success. And that's the kind of dog where you got to do that. Not just, hey, I've got a new way to introduce dogs together. Let's get that really crazy fear-biting shepherd to do it. Let's start with the other dogs first. Make sense there? Okay. So now, in contrast to the simple paired walking routine that I just described, and hoping you can relate to what's happening in these photos from the standpoint of the 2 dogs on the right, consider these pictures. I just took them off the internet, and I hope none of you are one of the people in these pictures. Or if you are, you purposely took them to show everyone a couple of good ways to promote reactivity and set dogs up for failure. The first way is to stop and stand still in situations where relaxed, directed movement and team building work so much better. And the second is positioning dogs that don't know each other across from one another. Again, positioning dogs across from one another is very human intuitive. That's what we do. But positioning them side by side is team building, and it's a lot more canine intuitive. And then add some tension to the equation. I mean, look how much tension is apparent here, both in the dog's leashes and in their handlers' arms. Tension, 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 tension. And look at the positions of the boxers and the small dog's tails in response. Yesterday we talked about tail position and what it tells us. Tail position tells you a lot about a dog's state of mind and his energy level. So if you're not familiar with reading tails, again, my favorite reference is going to help you there. Now, this response to approaching dogs deserves mention too, and not because I recommend it. In reality, it just drives me a little bit nuts. And that is the dog who does tend to jump around and be a little reactive when he sees other dogs. When the dog's trained instead, stop, look at the owner, watch me, watch me, watch me, watch me. Ignore that dog going by. It stops the dog. It positions the dog across from the person. You're becoming vocal, trying to be calm. It's just not natural. So try our approach instead. My apologies to everybody training this. Because again, for many, many years, I trained this too until I realized, wait a minute, there's got to be a little more canine intuitive way. So try our team building approach instead. So other handlers and their dogs can calmly pass you while walking in the same direction. If you're matter of fact and calmly directive about the process, your dog won't see any reason to get reactive, and he won't find reason to associate the appearance of other dogs with your tension. Now, when trainers say that 95% of dog training is training the human side of the leash, they're completely correct. And every handler has his own learning curve. If this is how your dogs walk you, or when dog handler pairs like this walk in your direction, let me offer a few suggestions pertaining to posture, position, movement, and energy. Why? Because first, dogs communicate with each other using posture, position, movement, and energy. And second, because the posture, position, movement, and energy you see in this picture communicates all the wrong things to approaching dogs. And if approaching dogs are prone to reactive things that they see as not quite right, reactive behavior is what you're going to get. So in this case, the dog's reactive behavior would be the symptom. The inciting factor is a problematic posture, position, movement, and energy of this dog and handler. And third, well, it's just going to make walking with your dog so much more enjoyable. So if some of what I just said surprises you, contrast the handler, PPME, posture, position, movement, and energy, and focus on the left with the handler, PPME, and focus on the right, and consider how you might feel about them as a dog traveling in their direction. Posture, position, movement, energy, and focus. Seeing things through the eyes of the dogs around you can be really eye-opening. And I hope that doing this right now will encourage you to do it on a regular basis. Reactive dogs are honest about how they feel, and they're not apt to pull any punches. So it's really important to start to see things through their eyes so that you can do the right things and lead them to the right things. My suggestions for the handler in the top picture here, and for you if you need a little help, focus up and focus forward, not down at your dog. If you persist in looking down at your dog, who is leading the way and who is following? Right. And dogs coming the opposite direction may not trust the decisions your dog is making. Maintain a good walking pace, comfortable for your dog. Our species is really good at mall moseying. And mall moseying might be a perfectly good pace for a 14-year-old Pekingese, but it's just not a good pace for a 2-year-old Weimaraner or almost any healthy dog of any size. Don't be overly concerned about tripping over your dog. Dogs tend to step in front of handlers who hesitate. They move out of the way of handlers that they see are confident. Envision yourself and your dog doing your best. It may take a little while to get there if you got a dope on the rope, but what you picture in your mind is what you're more likely going to get, and the dogs around you all know the picture in your mind. You have this dog, he's a young, unexercised, untrained adolescent, and he's your classic dope on a rope. Just look up, look ahead, put a smile on your face, relax your shoulders, and picture you have the most perfect dog at your side. And that helps. It really helps, because what's the alternative? You're walking around going, yeah, I'm the one with the dope on the rope. If that's a picture in your mind, that's what you're going to get. So strive to picture yourself as being calm and confident, and that this dog is going to slowly get with the program. And you know what? Most of them often do. It might take a little time, might take a little exercise, but have a positive picture in your mind. Just allow for it. Hold the middle of your leash, not the handle. We talked about this the other day. Kind of like a gym bag. Secure, but without grasping it. What you want to do is you want to take the end of your leash, just hook it to your pinky so it's not bopping your poor dog in the head as you walk along. And knot your leash. Put a great big knot, not just a little knot, but a great big knot where it's comfortable for you to hold it like this. Yesterday, I passed this leash around and some of you got to try it. Of course, you don't have your dogs here, but this is a reminder, please, when you do have your dogs, I want you to try this trick. It is so lovely to walk dogs at your side, holding your leash like this, just palming the knot and not having to grasp anything. And if you've got arthritis like I do, believe me, this is the only way to go. Makes you feel a lot more secure too. Yeah. Have I ever used prongs? You know, it's so funny because I had a dog that I actually pulled out a prong the other day. He was a huge adolescent, very insecure, could easily have turned around. He was a Great Pyrenees that had been through 6 successive homes. And the question was, please, Lynn, look at this dog or we're going to put this dog down. And the dog just did so well. But in reaching for it, it's like, first of all, I don't even know where the prongs are because the only prongs we have are ones that came in with dogs. These dogs come in and they've got like 40 different collars that we don't use. So they all go in this great big bunch of leashes and collars. So I actually found one that worked with the dog. He relaxed. He was absolutely wonderful with it. And it was suitable because it allowed me to be just so gentle with him. Just so gentle. In the hands of a lot of people, it's absolutely the wrong tool. Yesterday when we were talking about personal energy and the importance of getting your personal energy correct, I mentioned how tools will never make up for your energy being off. So in general, it's not a go-to tool. It's one that occasionally with a dog, it's like, well, you know what? This might be really good for this dog. Put it on, see in 5 minutes, does he totally relax? And is he now not pulling on the lead, nice and relaxed? Because that's our goal. Not to control the dog, but to set him up to succeed. And yeah, there have been a couple of dogs where that seems to be the tool that works. But the majority of the time, it's just not a tool that I reach for. You can have a lot of tools in your toolbox. You know, you always want to reach for the one that relaxes the dog, sets him up for success. As your skill set improves, you're not going to be reaching for the tools, first of all, because you're just going to be thinking, gee, the most important tool in your toolbox is patience. And then exercise, and then working with other dogs. You know, you start to think in terms of one of the tools will be a routine that you're going to follow, not a tool you're going to use. So, tension and frustration will always work against you, no matter how justified it might seem. The people who were with me yesterday, what do dogs do when they're faced with tension? They pull away. Exactly. So dogs will always move the other direction from tension. And so having good leash skills is really important so that you're not doing this kind of thing and you're not doing this kind of thing as you're walking with the dogs or any of the other things that we tend to do when we're faced with a bouncy dog and don't know what else to do. And with all that in mind, stop using extendable leashes, please, because that's constant tension. And when it comes to harnesses, we use a lot of no-pull harnesses. I'm always turning anything that has like a regular collar into a martingale collar. Dulcie's chest plate has a martingale on the front of it. If the harness is not a no-pull harness, it is a pulling harness. Okay? It's very simple. It's one or the other. You put a pulling harness on a dog, especially these cute little dogs. Don't they always have these cute little harnesses, all different colors, pink for girls? But then the owners wonder why the little foo-foos are just attacking every dog as they're pulling back and the dog's pulling forward, as they're pulling back and the dog's pulling forward. That's a perfect example of absolutely the wrong tool. When it comes to head collars, a lot of times people ask me about head collars. My breed of choice, Dobies, they just don't fit well. They ride right up into their eyes and the dogs hate them. But every once in a while I find a dog who does quite well with them. It's really a matter of matching the person and the dog and the tool and doing it in a way that 100% sets the dog up for success. That's your goal, not let's give this person some control. That's not my goal. If the dog is under exercise and jumping around and you're like, we need a stronger tool to control this dog. No, you don't. The dog needs exercise. That will set him up for success and stuff. So going back to this picture, my last two suggestions, find some people who walk well with their dogs in a relaxed manner and just sit back and watch them. See what you can learn by watching them do what they do. And exercise, exercise, exercise. I mentioned this already. Both your dog's body and his canine brain. It's absolutely unfair to expect an under-exercised dog to do his best on a leash and with other dogs less tolerant of his extra energy. When presented with a polopotamus like the one in the top picture, we give him the chance to treadmill, jog alongside a trike, or team up with one of my volunteers who likes to inline skate. Got a husky, a Bernese mountain dog, you know, the kind of dog who needs to pull and get out there in front of you. If you know anybody who inline skates, it's a great option. Okay, these dogs just need to get their heebie-jeebies out before they can do their best, and setting them up for success requires that we help them to do it productively. Now, lastly, when it comes to things that can promote a dog's reactivity, I've already mentioned the problem with having a negative picture in your mind. So being able to let go of negative pictures is really empowering. Rescue dogs often come to us with a story, don't they? And some of these stories are quite horrible. But to always think back to the past when you're helping a dog to shine in the present tends to rob him of a brilliant future. Do you have a dog who reacts badly to tall, bearded men with glasses and hats? Well, stop stiffening every time you see a tall, bearded man with glasses and a hat walk by. Instead, find some wonderful, tall, bearded men with glasses and hats of all sizes to walk side by side with your dogs as often as you can. Turn that frown upside down. Turn reality into something positive. Get concerned when you see certain breeds? Hey, it's in all of us to do that when we see a certain breed and go, holy crap, it's an XYZ. Find some calm, sweet-natured representatives of those breeds and go for some side-by-side walks. Then find some puppies of those breeds and enjoy some time with them. It's the best way to free yourself of this picture in your mind that's absolutely going to work against you. A picture that can cause trouble, not just for you, but for all the dogs on the other end of your leash. This is a perfect example of building better associations, building cohesive teams, and getting moving to move on. Let the story go by making it better. Reactive handheld dogs. These little volcanoes in your arms that are going to erupt anytime. Yeah, you can relate. The good news is this is another case where reorientation side by side to build the team works really well. If you have a small dog in your hands who suddenly erupts, rather than stand still as he vents, calmly and matter-of-factly move him to your hip. So we're going to use movement here in a number of different ways. Movement number one is to move the dog from here down to your hip, like he's a football. At the same time, move to the side of whoever or whatever got him in a tizzy in the first place. You're putting everybody on the same team. Then if it's possible to get everyone moving together, do it. Even if it's only moving across or around a room. It's absolutely the best way to communicate the behavior, energy level, and state of mind you want through movement, and it stops all the dogs fussing and carrying on without a word spoken. I was at a veterinary conference, and there were 3 veterinary wives, and they came up to me during a break, and they said, we're all going to get our pom puppies in about 15 minutes. They were meeting somebody who was bringing all 3 pom puppies. I mean, they weren't really puppies. They were like adolescents. And every one of them was a bark fest. And so they're like, oh, aren't they cute? And the dog's like, bark, 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 bark. I said, okay, come here. And I lined everybody up. Person, dog, person, dog, person, dog. And these were handheld dogs. I said, get those dogs from here. Get them down like a football. As soon as we put everybody on the same team, I wish I could snap my fingers. There you go. Thank you. It takes a village. The dogs just quieted immediately. You should see the face on the women. And I said, okay, now we move. And it was a nice big room, and we just started walking. And as soon as we started moving, the dogs quieted down. Now, those of you who are used to fussy babies, this is kind of the same thing. You shift position and you start moving. With dogs, moving calms a savage beast. Orientation of everybody in the same direction also puts you on the same team, and that is so powerful. And it is so cool how this works. So let's talk about personal space. When it comes to personal space, we all need some of it. Some of us need a little more of it by nature, and all of us prefer a lot more of it when we're unsure about the energies around us. But people forget the importance of personal space when they stick their noses 6 inches from a dog's face. A dog who has his comfort zone invaded has but a few choices. He may or may not be able to move away. Okay, it's easier to move away if you're a 95-pound Labrador than if you are a 9-pound Pekingese being clutched to the chest of a woman. He can lash out, earning the label reactive. Or he can submit to things that basically make him uncomfortable. This is why we get so many little dogs who lip curl, growl, air bite, or nip. Well, hey, let's give these little dogs some credit. They could be doing a lot worse. Other dogs would see these choices as simple, straightforward communication. People, however, label them reactivity or aggression. Human training and not dog training is the key to stopping this kind of situation-generated behavior. And fortunately, some simple yellow items can help. And no, they're not cattle prods. You can find lots of yellow vests and collars and leashes and bandanas online that help to communicate a dog's need for personal space. I can't say I'm a fan of the ones that label a dog nervous, because they imply that the problem lies with the dog and not with the posture, position, movement, and energy of the people around them. I do like the ones that request a little extra personal space because they encourage the correct behavior from approaching people without making either the people or the dog out to be wrong. Has anybody used these? Okay. Check them out online. They can make a big difference. Even the ones like you see in the upper picture where it's just the yellow ribbon around the leash. Anybody who works with horses and has seen a red ribbon in a horse's tail knows it's the same thing. This is a nice way of communicating an animal's need to somebody without making that somebody feel wrong. And you know how often you say, well, he doesn't like people in his face. Oh, it's okay. I know dogs. Yeah, you've never seen that before. So another tool that we've used out on the trails and even at adopt-a-thons to stop people from approaching larger dogs head on is our adult trike. Less than $300 and one of the best investments our shelter ever made. Trikes are great for showing off an individual's capabilities in public places, exercising multiple large dogs tied to their baskets in the back, especially boisterous under-exercised adolescents, but also building teams of dogs. And because we use trikes and walking side-by-side treadmills to exercise and build teams at our facility, fence fighting, a common issue when dogs are kept face-to-face using see-through fencing, isn't something that we need to deal with. We're setting our dogs up for success because their association with dogs is that's a treadmill walking partner, or that's a walking partner, or that's a biking partner. We set them up for success before they even start to interact with a lot of other dogs. This is the problem with having a system, a facility that is so dependent on group play. And group play is awesome. But you know how many dogs fail group play. Maybe the play styles of the dogs are mismatched. Look at any of Amy Sadler's stuff, Dogs Playing for Life. She has some wonderful materials on play styles of dogs and matching them. But some dogs are just, that's not where they're going to start. They need to move. We're down by the beach, so taking dogs down to the beach, that's Cindy riding the trike there. That really helps them out a lot. By the way, if you do that kind of thing, don't forget, a lot of dogs, their pads are not set up to walk and trot for a while on pavement. They have to build up calluses like we do. So it's best to find some dirt roads if you got them for that. Or again, using a treadmill for an indoor facility, it works really, really well. Oh, okay, when it comes to treadmills, first of all, free treadmills are great. And it's really, really easy to get them by just going online. Especially around, the summertime when the weather gets nice. People who bought treadmills in the winter, they decide they absolutely hate the thing and it's taking up lots of room and there's all this clothes on it. And for $50, take my treadmill, please. They're human treadmills. Yeah, we don't have the dog ones. A lot of them are just an inexpensive Timex type. We call them the Timex version of it because they take a licking and keep on ticking. And I talk about that in chapter 17. Different features of treadmills you really want to see because you don't want to put some little dogs on a treadmill that starts immediately at 1 mile an hour because they might need 0.6 miles per hour, 0.7. Let me switch now to the subject of housing our dogs. Because just as the concept of side-by-side orientation and what it communicates to our dogs is important when we walk, treadmill, trike, and introduce them to one another, it is also extremely important when we crate and kennel them. When dogs are kenneled or crated across from one another without visual blocks, left in adjacent chain link play yards without team building exercises like parallel walks or treadmilling first, or separated by baby gates across doorways. A really bad idea. They're sent a message of psychological and social division. Doing this creates multiple teams and not one. Mix in a little unstable energy, a little excitement, and you're going to have a real me versus him situation. So I am not a fan of baby gates with dogs. With cats, fine. Because cats are head first head-butting. It's a whole different species. But with dogs, a baby gate essentially puts the dogs face to face. It says, you're on that team and you're on that team. It's the exact opposite of the team building exercises that we use, and I don't recommend them. There are few things more stressful when you're a stressed dog in a new place than having another dog watch everything you do. If your kennels are set up across from one another like this, there are two things that you can do pretty quick to add calm and peace of mind to everyone's life. The first is cover the lower half of the kennels on one side of the aisle. We've had really good success using opaque plexiglass panels for this. They hold up to lots of different washings, and we attach them to the outside of the chain link doors using simple double-sided hooks. Easy to put on, easy to remove. The second is house your more reactive dogs on the covered side. Your kennels will be quieter, your dogs will be a lot more relaxed, and everyone will be healthier. I can't emphasize enough the importance of seeing things through a dog's eyes when it comes to facility design. People consider building materials, budgets, human comfort, and visitor appeal when it comes to building a new facility, but they so very often forget to build housing and thoroughfares that set their dogs up for success psychologically and socially. Now, architects can help you with building materials and budgets and human comfort and visitor appeal, but they know nothing about dog behavior and not that much about disease control either. Maybe a little bit. So if you're planning on building a new facility and you'd like some help with these things, feel free to give me a call before you get wedded to any set of expensive blueprints. I'm happy to help you troubleshoot any concerns. So before opening the floor to additional questions, I thought it might be fun to share a few lessons for everyone from my little friend Ziggy. And before I share this video, he wants me to tell you that he was completely set up. This is a video that was taped to show people what not to do if you don't want your dog to become reactive.
Yeah, don't pet him. Don't pet him, please don't pet him.
Come on. Pretty dog, huh?
Ziggy's like, help me, Lynn, help me.
Ziggy, honey. Yeah, he doesn't take to new people too well. It takes him a long time to warm up.
Come on. How old is he?
He's about 5 years old.
Yank, yank, pull on the collar.
Good boy, Ziggy's.
Come on.
So here's a question for you. If this guy's approach is all wrong, and she doesn't correct the situation by getting everybody moving side by side in a relaxed manner in the same direction, then who is forced to make some decisions? Who is being forced to respond? Here are a few things that Ziggy would like y'all to know. First, if you have a negative picture in your mind, then he's gonna too. Second, warning growls are meant to back you off when your approach is impolite. It's a hint. Take it. Third, notice how often Ziggy looks up at his people, first at Cindy and then at me, hoping that we're going to step up to take the lead. And fourth, notice how many times he turns to invite everyone to start walking. And that's important because a lot of folks don't realize if you look at the dog, he's saying, hey, I don't want to be a reactive little dog. Let's walk together. And for heaven's sake, please stop tugging on his leash. Now, videotaping is priceless when it comes to seeing what's really happening with your dogs. Your people too, and I can't recommend it highly enough. How many of you have videotaping or video surveillance at your facilities? Awesome. How many of you have the ability to play things back? Okay. All right. So consider that a learning tool. Let me play this video again one more time.
Yeah, don't pet him. Don't pet him, please don't pet him.
Come on. Pretty dog, huh?
Yeah, it's just very...
Ziggy, honey.
Yeah, he doesn't take to new people too well. Takes him a long time to warm up.
Come on.
That licking is, he's insecure. He's not sure with us. See how many times he turns and he's like, what's up, guys? I'm giving you a hint.
He's about 5 years old. Good boy, Ziggy's.
Come on.
So a few lessons from Ziggy. To end my presentation, let me leave you on 3 notes. First, never stop learning about canine culture and canine communication, and always be willing to learn from a large number of dogs. The more you understand how dogs communicate with each other, and the more you're willing to unlearn some human things to embrace some pretty cool canine things, the better your canine behavior skills will be. Second, embrace the concept of clean slates when you work with dogs, especially the reactive ones. One of the many good things about a dog's natural ability to live in the moment is every new situation and every new location offers a chance to reboot and a new opportunity to get things right. Whenever you encounter a bump in the road with a dog that you're working with, try changing location and mentally leave what just happened in the past. And third, don't let opportunities to smile pass you by, especially if you're working with your own dog. I was so excited when I opened up that ice cream and I saw him smiling. I was like, where's my camera? This is going to be a good night. So to learn more about how dogs see the world and how they view the people around them, check out the different videos, and here are some of them, on the givesmiles.us YouTube channel. If you like what you see, be sure to refer your staff and clients and subscribe, because subscribing is the best way to hear about new videos when they're produced. And check out my absolute favorite reference too. If you get one, you look through it and you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally on board. I love this stuff. You can resell them to your clients for $18, or you can use them for staff training. And what a lot of places have done is they have these little once a week sessions where, first of all, they have everybody on staff read a particular chapter or group of chapters. Then on a day where they have one quiet hour, they'll put a sign on the door saying, closed for staff training, lock the door for an hour, order in some pizza, and then talk about what they just read and how it pertains to your facility. So it's like they're reading chapter 5 about routines. You're all going to be talking about the kind of routines that the dogs see. When dogs come in, they're always looking for patterns. They're always looking for routines. Are the routines you have at your facility setting the dogs up for success and the staff up for success or failure? If you're reading about treadmilling, it gets everybody on the same page, because you can't introduce every dog to a treadmill the same way. I actually talk about 3 different ways in the book. And if somebody needs a little help in a certain department, everybody else on the team can help them with that too. Thank you.